Welcome to the Heal, Thrive, Dream podcast, where trauma survivors become healthy thrivers. Each month, we'll feature a theme in the trauma recovery and empowerment field. To promote your recovery, healing, and learning how to build dreams, here's your host, Karen Robinson, transformational coach and therapist.
Hi there, and welcome to the Heal, Thrive, Dream podcast. Today, my guest is Carly Stein. Carly is an award-winning artist, entrepreneur, international speaker, and trauma survivor. She transforms adversity into purpose. Carly, through creativity, advocacy, and authentic storytelling, inspires others to embrace healing, resilience, and self-acceptance while helping people recognize that their greatest challenges can become their greatest strengths. Thank you so much, Carly, for being with me today.
Thank you for having me.
Well, this is our first time ever speaking that I recall. Probably not before.
Yeah, except for text back and forth. Yes.
Yeah, but it feels like I know you, so that was weird. And I was looking at your face earlier, I'm like, we have not met in person before. This is interesting. Anyway, I'm glad that you're here. Okay. So what I normally like to start with, because as my audience is complex trauma survivors, it's usually heavily women, but there are men who listen as well. So I want you to think about someone that feels maybe stuck, and not all trauma survivors are stuck, but we tend to get stuck pretty easily. Someone who is stuck and they're struggling and they're like, Carly doesn't get me. Can you share a little bit why you would get someone who's survived a lot of trauma?
Yes, I think I need a crown that says Resilience Queen, because life keeps happening and I keep moving. In 2018, one morning, it was July 15th, I think, I woke up one day and in the middle of the night and thought I had food poisoning. As you have food poisoning, typically, as it starts coming out, you feel better, right? I wasn't feeling better that day. As the day went on, I was feeling worse. So I just posted on Facebook, as I used to do that back then, is send some good positive energy, send some Reiki, because I knew I was in trouble and I didn't quite know what to do. So a friend of mine who is a Reiki master and also extremely intuitive calls me and says, "What's wrong?" And I told her, and she says, "Get to the hospital and get there now. Don't wait for an ambulance. Don't wait for a friend to come pick you up. Go now." I go there, do all the tests, do all the things, learn that I have salmonella poisoning and C. diff.
Oh, wow.
The C. diff had been in my body untreated since February. So 5 months.
I wasn't expecting you to talk through a medical trauma, but proceed.
Yeah. And that's where it all started. Let's just put it that way. I have been through it. I ended up having C. diff 6 times, and we can get into that a little bit more. And then I had to have 2 fecal transplants, and a year later got hit with long COVID, and that gave me long-term disabilities, which is why I become an advocate for people with hidden disabilities. So I can understand what it's like when you are dealing with stuff and you don't know why. You don't know why this is happening to you. You're having serious conversations with your higher self going, what the heck? Why is this me? Why did this happen to me? And there was one point I was on the phone with my therapist, or a Zoom call. And I said to him, my life was just getting good again, and now I'm going to die. And he checked me right there and said, "That sounds like a limiting belief, Carly." And boy, was he right. And now I'm still here to talk about it. And I love talking about the things I learned with this experience in my life, because it taught me so much. And I believe a lot of other people they might not relate, but they can relate to what I learned and how I overcame everything.
I get it. It's hard to relate to all the C. diff
Yes,
issues though. 6
C,
sounds like, is that a world record for people?
I'm
Do
not
you know?
sure. C. diff, for those who don't know, is a deadly infection in the colon.
Yeah, like 6 sounds like you're rolling the Russian roulette dice there a few times.
And it was all happening during COVID, and things weren't normal. And there was one point where they said they're closing the factory. We can't do fecal transplants anymore. And then that got resolved, and there were a lot of things.
Yeah, I was hospitalized during COVID too for an emergency gallbladder removal. And that was really harrowing because it took them several days to operate and I was being poisoned basically the whole time. Yeah, so by the time they took my gallbladder out, first, before they took it out, I had a really bad migraine. I couldn't even think straight. And so then I accepted the pain medication because of that. And then they try to give me pain medication after my gallbladder is out. And I'm like, I don't need it. And they're like, what do you mean? You just had your gallbladder out. Of course you have pain. I'm like, nope. You took out the issue. I'm good. It was really interesting. But yeah, being in the hospital during COVID was not very fun. Sorry, were you isolated? Were you able to have any guests at all? I know I wasn't.
So 2020 was actually the year I wasn't sick, miraculously. It wasn't until, to get more in depth into my story. So I was diagnosed the first time in July of 2018. Then Labor Day of that year, I'm at work, I'm bent over in pain, like tummy pain, and it's a holiday weekend, and I have to get my manager to come cover me so I can go to the hospital. Turns out I have 2 different forms of food poisoning, which didn't help matters. And then later that year, I finally saw the GI doc, and he said, I think if you don't get sick through the rest of the year, you're in the clear. Famous last words. So January of the following year, 2019, I have norovirus and C. diff. And I said, my doctor says to me, why do you always get 2 things at once? And I said, I'm an overachiever like that.
Sure.
So then I was fine through the rest of 2019. That took a few months to clear up, but I was fine. And then I was great during 2020. That was the healthiest year of my life, to be honest. Why? Because no one else was around, right? There weren't other people were being mindful of germs, etc. So 2021 comes along. I take my friend to the ER, and a week later, my stomach exploded. We got problems. I get tested positive for C. diff. I tested positive 3 times that year. Even though there were times I was testing negative, I showed all the symptoms. So we're at number 4. Or wait, no. 1, 2, we're at 5 at that point. Towards December of that year, which is 2021, I said, I'm testing negative, but I have all the symptoms still. I literally, for years,
Feel your body back at that point.
for years, I looked like I was 8 months pregnant. Never had a kid in my life. Yeah. And then, so he ends up getting me qualified for a study that is fecal transplants via enema. And I qualify for that, and I'm miserable for 10 days. Then I'm great. Host a surprise party for my friend's birthday, eat raw oysters, and get sick again. At that point, I tested negative for an infection, but positive for antibodies of C. diff, which was peculiar because I wasn't active when I had the transplant. Come October, I was in full-blown infection, and it became antibiotic resistant at that point. They tried everything. He tried to put me on a antibiotic for 30 days. That is so strong, the FDA only allows you to be on it for 10 days. Antibiotic infusion didn't work, and come Christmas that year, I was pretty sure I was a goner. Ended up spending what I thought was my last holiday season alone. And come January 2nd so the following year, I test positive, everything's correct, and they schedule the fecal transplant a year and a week later from the first one, but done the normal way. Recovery from that was horrible. It was worse than being sick, but there was something really profound that happened because I was 100% sure it did not work. That's how miserable I was. And I had to do some soul searching at that point. And I said, my friend said, Carly, you keep getting sick or feeling sick because you haven't gotten to the bottom of why this all happened to begin with. I know, truth rings there, right? So that's when I did some soul searching and realized I had developed belief patterns that I was a burden on my family.
Yeah.
And I will say, this is none of their fault. This was all me creating beliefs based on whatever things, past experiences, right? And that's what was creating trauma in the place where you're supposed to be nurtured, right? So then, as I said, recovery was worse than actually being sick. And then July 1st that year, so I think that was 23. Yeah, so it would be 3 years today. I said, I can't effing live like this anymore. And I was done. The universe heard me loud and clear. Suddenly, all these people showed up out of the woodwork to help me heal, to help me get all the trauma out of my body. And I ended up pivoting my business, doing all sorts of things, and having this miraculous changeover. I released around 100 pounds.
Wow.
Yeah. And just really started to live again. And that lasts for about a year. Then I get long COVID, and that ended up giving me learning that I had Ehlers-Danlos syndrome from it. And now I also have POTS, which are lifelong disabilities. So
I also have Ehlers as well. So I get the complications with that. It's pretty common for trauma.
Yep.
Suppressed immunity, all the things.
Yeah.
I think having you on my show is so helpful because I work with a lot of people, complex traumas, we end up getting some funky medical issues.
Yeah.
And I don't think it's accidental. I do think it's the trauma taking over our bodies until we decide enough's enough and really make some holistic whole body changes for sure.
I can think back to, I've probably had ED heads my whole life. I had back pain at 10 years old. What kid has back pain at 10 years old? And whatnot. It was discovered because I had hit my head against the wall from norovirus. Are we surprised? No. And it lasted for 8 months. So that is how we discovered that was probably the situation. But I do say COVID exacerbated it.
Of course. Yeah. So as you are one of my speakers for the Finding Confidence After Trauma Summit coming up this August, I don't know a good segue. Help me figure out, how did you get your mojo back, your confidence back after everything you've been through? Like, why does this topic resonate?
Yeah.
Like, why do you want to share this?
It's really because I drew a line in the sand of the universe and said, I'm done. We're not going down this route anymore. And it was like, it was a demand. It wasn't even a question. It was a demand. And sure enough, the universe said, all right, let's serve this up. And I will say, in terms of higher self, religion, I tend to use God and universe interchangeably. So it was really like everything shifted at that point. And I was just like, I'm not doing it. And there were so many things I learned through this process, which I'll talk about at the conference. Like, what do you do when you're basically on your deathbed and your family's deserted you? You know what I did? Once I got better, I gave back. So the following year, I created for the holidays, I said, I'm sure there's people who are going through the holidays this year like I did the previous year, and I don't want them to feel so alone. So I got a bunch of people to donate stuff. We ended up creating 2 care baskets or gift baskets, and I had people nominate others to win them. And they just had a little less, just know someone was out there caring about them.
It's so beautiful. And what a way to win goodwill back again from the universe, because we know we receive more when we give more.
Yeah. And let's see, the women's group you and I are both a part of, Polka Dot Powerhouse, did so much to help me, and I wanted to give back. So that year I brought in 20 new members.
Wow.
One of my takeaways is when you give back to the community, because you'll never know when you need them again.
That's powerful.
Yeah.
Can you tell us a bit about your work and how did your medical traumas, and I'm guessing you've had other traumas in your life, how did these traumas impact the work that you're doing now?
Yeah, so I actually have several businesses. I'm an artist, and it's funny, I strongly believe the universe gave me the art business. I also make jewelry because it knew what was coming down the line, and it's how I survived, like financially.
Yeah.
So I call it my gift from the universe. And then that evolved into what is now senior living markets. And I give crafters and makers a space to sell to seniors. And I'm not sure how that trauma fits in it, but I think it's made me a more understanding and caring person for the people that don't necessarily, they don't get out. They don't have the resources to go out to fairs and markets, right? And then I'm starting a new business this year called Here for Dopamine. And it is to educate service providers about the 20% of their client base that is neurodivergent. Because at one point I started seeing patterns where people were saying things to me that didn't need to be said. And as a result, they were losing my business.
You mean like they didn't have a filter type of comments, you mean?
So for example, and this is how I start my talk when I talk about creating client experiences for every brain, in that I was getting a facial and she told me to lie down. And for those who don't know, I have ADHD. I was diagnosed at the age of 19. And she lied me down and said, just relax. What she didn't understand is that when I'm relaxed, I get very creative. So I kept coming up with these great ideas left and right. And she just kept saying, shh, just relax. And I was like, you're not letting me have my experience. What is wrong here, right? Later in the facial, she says to me, this is the driest skin I've ever worked with. And most people's mouths drop when I say that. But first, that's rude to say to anyone. And second, you say it to someone with ADHD, they start ruminating. They start, justice sensitivity might show up, rejection sensitivity dysphoria shows up. Depending on where they are in their healing process, they might be either agreeing with them and then internalizing it, or trying to stop themselves from not buying into that and telling themselves they're not a bad person. So that experience plus some other experiences really carved the idea that it's 2026. I think the world needs to meet neurodivergent people where they are now.
I really appreciate those examples you gave, because I was like, oh, yeah, I can see where that might not be okay. Yeah.
Yeah. There was a time where I asked for accommodations because I know I experienced rejection sensitivity dysphoria, and I was gaslit and lied to, and it didn't feel so good.
But I know that you know the adversities that we go through. There's these little gems on how we are able to bless others through what we do. How would you say those experiences How have you turned your pain into purpose is probably a better way to say it.
Yeah, this is part of it. I was at MSU Denver. There was a course I took end of last year, and part of it was a pitch competition. And I was selected to do a poster pitch. And I was explaining this new business to someone, and a guy with autism was standing nearby and listening to what I was saying. And he quietly says to me after I'm done, he says, "Thank you so much for doing this. This is needed."
Yeah.
Yeah, and then he showed me his fidgets and all of his things, and it was a beautiful moment. And I always believe the universe always shows you your why. And that was just a magical moment. I'm now a ambassador for HD Sunflower. Of course, it's not next to me, darn it. But HD Sunflower is a company that was created out of the UK, and essentially it provides a lanyard that is green and has sunflowers on it, and it makes people with hidden disabilities be visible. So great example is I was at Harry Reid in Las Vegas a few weeks back, and I'm wearing my lanyard, and I happen to be traveling with a flare-up. And it was the first time I'd ever traveled with a flare-up, but I had to get home. So, excuse me. So the Southwest bag check person sees my lanyard and says, "I see your lanyard. Is there anything I can help make your trip more comfortable?" I went,
Oh, wow.
"Well, it works." And so I said, "Actually, this is the first time I'm traveling with a flare-up. I have a knee injury. Is there any chance I can be moved to a place with more leg room?" Just kindly, not demanding, just requesting. And so she says, "Let me look." And she looks and she says, "You know what? Everywhere else there's someone next to you, but there's no one currently sitting right next to you. I think that's going to be easier for you to stretch out your legs." And I went, "Oh, that's absolutely perfect. Thank you so much." And then she also said, "Now the wheelchair station is over there. Do you want me to have them bring you one, or do you think you can walk there?" I was like, whoa, what is that here? So that has brought me to partnering with that company, has now made me an advocate for people with hidden disabilities.
So beautiful, Carly.
Thanks. Yeah, I'm actually going to start an online series here soon, reviewing locations for their ADA, what their ADA guest experiences are.
That's really cool too.
Yeah.
How does this all play into your confidence level?
It's wonderful. It's funny. I've actually attended a retreat a couple of weeks ago, and the thought really started coming to me is that I don't see myself the way others do. Because for me, I'm just doing what I'm supposed to do. And people are very inspired by me, which of course really helps with my confidence. But it was like, I just go, I don't know, I'm not doing anything special. I'm just being me, right? And I've always had I can't say always, I've done a lot of work to work on my self-confidence, a lot. I graduated high school and had zero self-confidence, and that got me into a lot of trouble. But, excuse me. I live in Colorado. It's very dry here. So it's been a long practice, nearly 20 years of really gaining my confidence. I think some of it comes with age as well. And it's just a matter of realizing that what you do and what you're putting out to the world isn't necessarily about you. It's about serving others. And once you get yourself and your ego out of it, you can make things happen. And that is confidence boosting in itself.
Can you give a super tip on somebody listening could try if they feel like their confidence is low? What would be a super tip?
The one thing I do is I listen to affirmations under white noise while I sleep at night. That has helped tremendously because my subconscious is getting it and I can sleep and my ADHD brain isn't distracted while I'm hearing all these things and getting overwhelmed. So that's been a beautiful thing, but also know that one of my favorite quotes, I don't have it in front of me, so I'm not going to name it directly, but essentially it says is other people's reactions towards you is a manifestation of themselves. It's their relationship with themselves, and it actually has nothing to do with you.
Yes.
And that was one of the biggest confidence boosters ever. In fact, my friend gave that quote to me a long time ago. I used to host a online radio show, and the first episode, I didn't want it to happen. I was scared out of my mind. I was praying for technical difficulties. I was not interested. And after that, I got through it. The second time I was still praying for technical difficulties, but once the third came around, it clicked on in my head that the radio show wasn't about me. It was about helping educate other people. And that's when all ego went out the door. I just did my thing. And I had people criticizing me left and right over it. You have a nervous laugh. I'm like, okay, what's your point? No, I'm still doing the thing. Your criticism looks like jealousy at this moment, but it's your relationship with you, not about me.
Carly, it's been really amazing getting to know you a little bit more. You have so much wealth of both personal and professional experiences on your path. I love learning about that, and I can't wait to learn more about all that. Thank you so much for agreeing to be a summit speaker. I hope you have more tips on how people can build their confidence, because you appear very confident. I don't know if someone has said that to you, but you really do ooze confidence. So that's
Thank you.
awesome. After everything you've been through, it's really beautiful to see.
Thank you.
Any final words of wisdom before we stop the show for today?
Anyone out there is going through trauma, my newest favorite quote is, if it's not okay, it's not the end. Because everything ends up okay in the end.
I love that.
So when you're in the mess of it and everything doesn't feel okay, it's because you're not at the end. You have to go through the messy middle. And something I am starting very soon is my Create Outside the Line Society. It'll be an art creation thing, but its tagline is where it's safe to be messy and magnificent.
What a beautiful tagline.
Thank you.
All right, well, please, if you haven't already, please share information about that so we can add it to your show notes. I don't see it as what you said.
My task today is put out dates, because it's Disability Awareness Month in July here, and our Disability Pride Month, and that's where we really want to kick it off.
Okay, I will look forward to learning more about that. Thank you so much, Carly.
Thank you for listening in today. Please join us next week, same day and time. Also, I would love for you to check out my website, healthrivedream.com.